recording again. We are all good. Okay, so we're going to do some of the questions for memory management, right? So first things first, right, to kick off, what is variable partitioning in memory management? I'll briefly explain. So variable partitioning is quite literally what it sounds like, right? You're partitioning something into variable size portions, and each of these pieces is going to fit the process based on the size of the process, right? So smaller process has less space, larger process has bigger space. So just make sure that it's just big enough for a process. Question 2, in the early architectures, CPUs used to generate physical addresses to access RAM. What kind of problems did physical addresses create, and how did memory management mechanisms solve these problems? Well, if we just had physical addresses, right, we kind of remember going through that over here, right? We only had the physical address in the case that they could only access it through that one address, meaning that processes could kind of get into the wrong places, right? There's no security measures. So if the registers were not configured right, because all there were relocation records at that point, right? This could mean that you get accidentally relocated to the wrong place in memory, and this creates kind of a very dangerous process, right? So with that being said, right, the two main problems with the way physical addresses work is, one, you need relocation records, which is very slow. You need a way to essentially get yourself to that offset physical address. And also, secondly, it was not really memory safe in the sense that you can overwrite processes because of that reason. And this got fixed by having virtual addresses, right? MMU would allow us to have a virtual address, and this virtual address can kind of be used. I like to equate it to like a key to a hotel room, right? The key is like your virtual address and unlocks the physical address with the help of the page table, which could be like the door or whatever you want to use for that. But it's essentially allowing you to have like that extra level of security that you need that virtual address to get to that physical address. So this added an extra level of security. Assume you have a simple program that declares a global variable and prints the address onto the screen. When you run two copies of this program simultaneously, you see that both programs print the same address on the screen. How is this possible? Briefly explain. So when we have a couple of different processes that are trying to access the same global variable, it's in one place in physical memory, but there can be multiple virtual addresses that point to that. And this is kind of the classic example of showing why we like using virtual memory. Because this allows us to access the global variable's value from two separate processes. So their virtual memory addresses are going to map to that corresponding physical address. So it's like two pointers kind of pointing to the same thing. Think about it like you and your friend are sharing a hotel room and you both get different keys. So you both get one key each, and that key can unlock the door. It might be a slightly different key, but it works to unlock that door, and you're able to share that physical location, that physical memory address. So I think this is like a good kind of example to remember, right? That you can kind of have two processes point safely to that one global variable by using virtual memory. We're also going to kind of get into what's called copy on write, which is a little bit later on in this. And that's going to allow us to only create a copy, which, it takes a while to create a copy, to have to clone every single piece. And because of that, we only will make a copy when we're writing to a process, right? This would just be considering reading. Like if you just want to access global variable and print the address on the screen, there's no changes happening, so it can just point to the same variable. That's totally fine. But the second you want to write to it, then you have to make a copy. So we'll go into that a little bit later. Okay, question 4. What is external fragmentation in memory management? Is external fragmentation a problem in paging systems? So when we talk about external fragmentation, we are having, in a case like here, right, there's gaps in between here. And because we need the entire process to be consecutive, right, we can't split it up. We can use segmentation to split it into 3 components, but even those 3 components must be like consecutive. Like, it can't store half of the code here and then the other half there. You can't just squeeze it in. So because of that, there could be little gaps like this. And if there's a process that needs to fit and there's only one tiny gap there, that's a problem. So we need that the process fits into memory and is stored consecutively, but the spaces left can be problematic. So if it was like one process after another process after another process, and you didn't really have the holes per se, maybe we would have been okay. But unfortunately, this is a big issue with external fragmentation. This is solved, though, when we do paging. So instead of having kind of memory all over the place like this, when we do paging, right, it's going to be an entire page that gets swapped in and swapped out, right? So with that being said, we know that each page is allocated. Each page is going to have a predetermined space. And you might use all of the space and you might not use all the space. That kind of leads into internal fragmentation, right? But we know that external fragmentation is not a problem because these pages are going to be where these processes are, essentially. Instead of having gaps like this, you're going to have one page after another, after another, after another. And these can be swapped into physical memory so that it's always going to fit. So you don't have to worry about fitting the external pieces together. The internal pieces are where it could be a problem. Because inside of one of these pages, what if you don't use the entire space? If you don't use the total number of pages here, then you might have internal fragmentation, right? You might have a little bit of waste. And because you have to use like a certain amount of pages, right? If a page has a certain size, if it only has room for like 12 entries and you have a 13th entry, you got to make a new page for that. Yes, it's a page with only one entry, so it's kind of a waste, but that's the thing with internal fragmentation. So that can be a little bit confusing, but is everyone good with external versus internal? It's quite literally external is outside and internal is like within the page.
All right, I submitted it. Do you want to keep going until you good, or do you want me to take over now?
I'll continue till the end, yeah. Like till probably
Okay.
like around here, I'd say. Like where the
Yeah, sounds good.
yeah. Okay. So, question 6 we kind of did already, right? We're kind of finding the holes per se and trying to find the first fit, best fit, worst fit. This is actually the exact same problem. There's probably going to be a problem like this on the exam. The most important thing to keep in mind, first fit, right? It's just look, find the first hole that would fit it, put it in the hole. Best fit has and worst fit though have to loop through the entire entire memory essentially, because you have to find where is the best fit and where is the worst fit. So they sometimes can be a little bit inefficient, but it pays off if you're able to actually fit things in. Like in this example, actually this second example we didn't necessarily do, but in the case here, right, we have 100, 500, 200, 300, 600 in that order. So for first fit, right, we know that 100, these are the partitions, right? And we know that there is the process 212, right? So first fit would just say, okay, it doesn't fit into 100, it fits into 500, put it in the 500 box. The next one would be 417, right? Doesn't fit here, It won't fit in 500 anymore because now there's 200 places allocated there, right? There's 112 spaces left. It doesn't fit in 200. It doesn't fit in 300, but it fits in 600. Put it in 600. Next one, 112. That would fit over here, right? So you plop it right in. And then 426. Notice at this point there is no room for 426. So it goes on the outside here, and I just have an X there to show it just doesn't fit, right? This is external fragmentation. I gotta fit it in, but I have to do it consecutively, and I can't just like squeeze it in or split it up into pieces. The total number of memory can work, but unfortunately this isn't the case. Best fit works a little bit better in the sense that it finds the smallest hole that you can fit something in. For instance, 212, the smallest hole would be 300. 417, smallest hole is 500. 112, the smallest hole would be 200. And 426 now can fit in the 600. So this results in us using our memory effectively and not just saying, oh, just use the first hole that you find, because we end up wasting the larger holes for that. And worst fit is quite literally the opposite, and this also results in us not being able to place the 426. We quite literally place the 112 and 212 in this largest 600 bin, and we have the 417 in the second largest, right? So it just keeps like looping and going over the to the largest places. So the whole point of worst fit, though, is just to hopefully, if you put a smaller process in a larger hole, you still have a larger hole, right? If you put a smaller process in a smaller hole, then you might end up with an even smaller hole that can be unusable. So it's kind of, pros and cons to everything. Okay, question 8. Now we have briefly explain how memory management with a variable partitioning and a simple MMU with base and limit registers work. Does this memory management scheme use physical or logical addresses? So when we have memory management with variable partitioning and a simple MMU, right? MMU means that it's going to convert between physical and virtual in that case, right? So because of that, it takes in the virtual address, uses the base, starting with the physical address, right? And the limit, which is the size of the process memory space, right? And it validates that virtual address. So it can see if it's within a good portion, right? If that virtual address ends up not being big enough, then we know, I'm sorry, if the limit ends up being smaller than your base, right? Your base is where you're currently at the moment. So if your base was like where process 1 is right now, let's just say, right? Then if your limit is under process 1, then that's saying you are not in a valid part of memory. So you're not able to get to that point. You want to make sure your limit is bigger. That way you'd be able to obtain the entire process. So hopefully, the process would be between the base and the limit, meaning that it would be valid and you can access the memory in it. And we know variable partitioning is implemented by our operating system, and it tries to find that contiguous place in memory. And it usually uses either like the best fit, first fit, worst fit. And once you're able to find that process, then you can allocate the physical address, right? And once again, allocate base register and the size into the limit. So its starting point is the base register and the limit is the size. So the limit is like how far you can go starting from that base. Okay, so just to kind of summarize what I also wrote for this was the OS uses the variable partitioning to find the space, right? So it finds the space in the first place. It sets those base and limit registers, and then during runtime, the MMU converts between the virtual to the physical. And before it has to make sure if it's valid, and that's when it uses the base and limit registers to make sure that the limit, that it's within the limit, that the limit's not too small. Then it's able to actually translate using the base plus the virtual address itself. So this is very similar to when we do paging. We kind of do the virtual address, like plus that offset. So kind of similar how it kind of evolves over time. What is a virtual address and how does that differ from a physical address? The virtual address is generated by the CPU for the running program itself. So the program owns this address. It is independent of the physical address itself. It's like a key that's independent to the room, right? You can just get another key. That's totally fine. It's not the room itself. This allows it to be very flexible, right? I can bring my hotel key anywhere that I want. I can bring a hotel room anywhere I want. It also allows it to be very safe, right? You can only access it through that virtual address. And this is different than the physical, which is the actual address itself. And this is where the memory resides in reality. That is always going to stay at its current position. It's not going to differ based on the program itself. Question 10, we get into process swapping. What is it for? In modern paging systems, is process swapping employed? Why or why not? So process swapping, right? It's quite literally taking a whole process, putting it into a backing store, and then like if there's a higher priority process that comes in, right? You're just replacing it. Put it into a backing store, and then once that higher priority process finishes, switching it out, swapping it back into your memory. So you gotta swap something out to fit something in, because there's only so much room. So if something more important comes in on your to-do list, you're gonna swap it in. And this is not used in paging because instead we use what's called demand paging. And this allows us to essentially swap pages in, not processes in. And these pages are only swapped in when we absolutely need them. So if we don't need them right now, then we don't need to swap it in. So for that, we don't use swapping for paging, right? Paging is literally using pages, not processes. Briefly explain the motivation behind segmentation for memory management and how it works. So we want to divide the code into three parts, right? The code, the data, and the stack. And this will allow us to have three smaller portions that hopefully we can put into different holes in our memory. So if we had, different processes, we could put two in this bigger block, let's say, and one in the smaller block. And that would allow us to not have to worry about finding one big chunk of contiguous memory. So each of these will have its own registers, right? So its own base and limit. And that makes sense because you need to know the base and the limit of each segment to know where it even is in memory and where it ends. Okay, 12, all modern memory management schemes use paging. Briefly explain the main motivation behind paging and if paging requires hardware support. So this solves external fragmentation because we're essentially just using fixed size pages, right? And these are always going to fit nicely within our memory. And as long as we have like n-free frames, you can run a program of n-sized pages, meaning that as long as you have an equal number of frames and pages, right? Pages are in virtual, frames are within our physical, then you're able to run your program. And you need hardware that's able to use an MMU, but mostly all CPUs at this point do paging. So there's not really like hardware support that you really need at this point. Like it's kind of a given. Like this is the standard now. So this question 13 now lists three things that are stored in a page table entry and explain what each is used for. This one I think is probably going to be one that might show up. So this one, you could pick any of them really. Just to kind of recap, right, you have the modified bit that tells if it's dirty or not, aka has it been written to. We have the reference bit. So this is, has the page been referenced? Has it been accessed? and that's just, it's set when it is actually accessed. The valid bit determines, hey, is this virtual address valid or is it invalid? What they mean by valid, is it actually present in physical memory or does it not exist? Because maybe it was changed or something, and then it would be invalid. We also have the protection bits that controls what you can do. So if you can read, write, execute. Usually you see those R, W, and X. So that's what they mean by that. And then we know the frame number itself, and this determines the physical page itself. Wait, actually, hold on. Yeah, okay. Okay, so 14, list one advantage and one disadvantage of paging. So with the advantage, right, it's very easy to allocate physical memory. External fragmentation is a big one. You don't have any external fragmentation. It's easy to page out frames that are invalid or not used. So swapping is quite easy with paging. So that's a major plus, right? As a disadvantage, right? You still have internal fragmentation. We didn't solve that problem. There could still be fragmentation within the pages themselves. There's also a large memory reference overhead, meaning, right, when we have to go between different page tables, right, it's going to take time and it's going to have memory reference overhead in that case, right? There's going to be one here, one here, one here. So there's 1, 2, 3 for this one over here, right? So there's always going to be n plus 1 references, so one extra reference, because there's the references to get from one level to another level, and then there's the memory access itself. So those are important to keep in mind for that formula that we're going to be doing later on. Okay. And what's the motivation behind multi-level page tables? Essentially trying to reduce the space requirement. So you have to lay out a lot of space, because imagine you have a giant page table. Well, if you split them up into smaller page tables, then make it a lot more manageable. This does require more memory access, so that takes some time, but you could essentially fix your space problem. Okay. Alright, I'm gonna leave these, honestly, to Justin, because these kind of confuse me a lot. But let me see, there's this one. I'll finish off with 17. And yeah, okay, I'm gonna just finish off with 17, and then I'll hand it off to Justin. So what is the effect of allowing 2 entries in a page table to point to the same frame in memory? Explain how this effect can be used to decrease the amount of time and memory needed to copy a large amount of memory from one place to another. What would the effect of updating some byte in one page be on the other page? How would you make sure that updating a byte in one page does not change the same byte in another page? Okay, so this is a bit of a mouthful, but what it's basically saying is, if you have 2 entries in a page table pointing to the same frame in memory, this is referring to what we kind of had before when we were both pointing to that global variable. We know that you could have 2 virtual addresses point to the same physical address. But this is fine if I'm reading, not if I'm necessarily writing. If I'm reading, it's totally fine to have references to the same thing. But the second I do a write, I need to create a copy on write. This is essentially saying that instead of just sharing the same copy, now the old value kind of gets invalidated, and whoever writes the new value gets kind of ownership over it. So this allows each of the processes that's writing to have its own sandbox, you can say. So remember, we create shared memory, essentially, when we're having 2 entries point to the same page frame. But this is only good when I'm reading. So if I'm writing, I'd need to create a copy. So copy on write. And this is actually because a protection fault is triggered. So, you know, the protection bit that we kind of went into before, you're not allowed to write to these addresses unless a copy is made. Otherwise, it would kind of screw it up. And then the writing process, or the process that's doing the writing, would point to the new copy. And updating the 1 byte, usually the effect would be, without copying on write, is that it would be immediately visible since it's pointing to the same place in memory. But copy on write allows us to have that original value in one process, and then the process that does the writing will have its own value that's updated. So this kind of keeps it controlled in a way. So if one process went rogue and changed up a variable, it's not like the only copy of that one variable. So that's what we think about when we map virtual addresses to physical, and how copy on write works. Any questions before I hand it back to Justin? Did I just lose everybody?
I'm here. I think we're ready. See the chat. Okay, I think we're ready. Sorry, I just got the next game on my second monitor and this shit's stressing me out. Hold on. Okay. Give me 1 second. Let me just share my screen. Oh. Oh, that was your screen. I thought that was mine. Okay.
You're good. I see it.
So, now we're gonna be going over some of the bit stuff. I'm not in, like, you know, there's probably some issues with my answers here. But correct me if you see anything wrong. I'm gonna go through some of them. I don't think we'll be able to go through all of the questions just because of time, but we'll see what we can do. Okay, I don't know why this is happening. There we go. Okay. So, a machine has a 48-bit virtual address, or has 48-bit virtual addresses, and 32-bit physical addresses, with a page size of 8 kilobytes. So it's saying how many entries are needed for the page table. Well, we have a 48-bit virtual address space, and we have a page size of 8 kilobytes. And so to do the 48-bit virtual address space, the 48-bit virtual address space is, I'm trying to remember. Hold on, let me just flip over here so I don't make sure I don't anything wrong. All right, so first we need to go ahead and convert our 8 kilobyte page size. And so how do we convert our 8 kilobyte page size? Well, 8 kilobytes is the same as 8 times 1 kilobyte. And so what'll make this easier is if we just convert everything to bytes. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say 8 times 2 to the 10. Where is 2 to the 10 coming from? Well, 1 kilobyte is 2 to the 10 bytes, right? 2 to the 10 bytes. And I'm trying to calculate how many bytes is 8 kilobytes. And so I could put in this notation and easily do that conversion, where we know 8 is 2 to the 3, and 1 kilobyte is 2 to the 10. Just do some exponent multiplication, and we get 2 to the 13. Oh, damn, I think the Knicks just lost. Anyways, 2 to the 13. And then for the virtual address space, it's 48 bits. So that's 2 to the 48. And so you can think of it as our space is 48 bits, and we're filling it with 2 to the 13 byte. Our space is 2 to the 48 bytes, and each page table or each page is 2 to the 13 bytes. And so we need to evenly distribute that space. So it's going to be 2 to the 48 divided by 2 to the 13. And 8 minus 3, that's 5. And 4 minus 1, that's 3. So that's going to be 2 to the 35 entries needed. Okay. Because we have a 48-bit address space, and the entries for the page table, or the number of entries for the page table, is going to be the address space size divided by the size of the pages. Okay. And then number
Can you
2
go over that
says,
quickly again, please?
sorry?
Can you go over that again?
Yeah, so again, we're given the size of the virtual address space, and we're given the size of the pages. And we need to find out how many entries are needed for the page table, right? And so to do that, we simply just get the size of the page table in bytes. Ooh, okay, sorry. Yeah, the Knicks just lost. Damn. Okay, whatever. We get the size of the page table by taking the page size, 8 kilobytes, and we convert it into bytes. And then we take the 48-bit virtual address space, convert that to bytes, so that's 2 to the 48 bytes. And the page size is 2 to the 13 bytes. And what this division is saying, okay, we have this amount of space, and we need to evenly divide it by this page size. And this will give us 2 to 35. Right? So we need 2 to 35 entries for the page table, because we're going to have 2 to 35 pages. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I also just want to make sure this is correct. This should be, but let me just also double check with chat. Give me 1 second. Yeah, 2 to 35. Okay. Next question, or the next part of this question. It says, how many frames are there in physical memory? Well, it's the same way. We know that the physical address space is 32-bit, and we know that the page size is supposed to be the same size as the frames. And so we're evenly dividing this 32-bit address space with with our 8 kilobyte frames, right? And so remember, 32-bit address space is 2 to 32 bits, and our frame size is 8 kilobytes, which we said was 2 to the 13 bytes. And so how many frames are there? Well, we take the space and we divide it by the size. And that'll get us 2,109. That'll get us 9. This should be 2 to 19. Okay. And so this will have 2 to the 19 frames. Okay. But yeah, I'm watching this shit on YouTube. I don't know where you're watching it. Okay. Does that make sense, what I just did? Yeah, number of frames is the physical address size divided by the page size, and the number of pages is the page table size divided by the page size. Or sorry, the virtual address size divided by the page size. Okay. All right, next question. This says, oh yeah, so that was it for that question. This would be like a great question to get on the exam. So I'm hoping he gives something like this. We'll have to see. Okay. This, I think we did that already. Okay, let's do 18. I know fucking Manhattan is in a mess right now. Okay. So, this says consider a logical address space of 8 pages of 1,024 bytes each, mapped onto a physical memory of 32 frames. How many bits are there in the logical address? Logical address meaning how many bits are there in the virtual address. So, again, the space is 8 pages, and each page is 1,024 bytes each. What is 1,024 bytes? 1,024 bytes is 1 kilobyte. So this is what you should remember, 1,024 bytes. That is 1 kilobyte. Okay. And we have 8 pages of 1,024 bytes each. So in total, our logical address space is 8 kilobytes, right? Because we have 8 pages of 1,024 bytes each. Okay. And so from here, what did I do? How many bits are there in logical address? 8 pages. Oh, sorry. 8 pages each, 1 kilobyte. Okay. So it's saying how many bits are there in the logical address. I don't know if I did that correctly, actually. I feel like it should be 10 bits, but let me just double check. Log 2? What you mean log 2? What the fuck?
Yeah, I was confused on this too, but I believe what it is it's talking about the bytes themselves. So that's the exponent. That's why they're taking the log 2, just cancel out the 2, and you're left with just the 13 on its own. So if you're talking about entries, it's always going to be 2 to the whatever power. But if you're talking about the bytes themselves, then we know it's going to be just the 13 bytes.
No, yeah, I get that, but it's saying how many bits are there in the logical address. When I think logical address, I'm thinking like the actual like page number and the offsets. But the way it's answering this is it's taking the address space, taking the page size, and then multiplying that together to get this, to get the total logical address space. Doesn't make too much sense to me, I guess, but Snorlax gave a function that you could use, that the number of bits in logical address, so number of bits in logical address is log 2 the pages plus log 2 of bytes on each page. So that would be 2 to the 3, or sorry, the number of pages times page size, right? So that would be 2 to the 3 times 2 to the 10. That is 2 to the 13. And then we would take the log of that, log 2, or you could just take the exponent. That would be 13 bits. I feel like that's probably just a formula you would have to know. Just number of bits in logical address is the number of pages times the page size. I don't really get it. Doesn't make too much sense to me. So that would just be a formula I would try to remember if you can. So people are typing. I don't know if anyone else is able to explain it or something. Can that be applied for number of bits in main memory address space too, or address too? Like number of bits in physical, you mean like a physical address? I haven't seen that kind of question. So I actually wouldn't know. Oh wait, right here. How many bits are there in physical address? Yeah, I did this, never mind. I think it's the same thing. 32 frames, each frame 1 kilobyte. So I took the what's it called? The address space, and I multiplied it by the size of the frame, got 2 to the 15, and that was 15 bits. So you can kind of think of it like this. Number of bits in blank address, whether that be logical or physical, is equal to the number of pages or frames, whatever it is, times the page or frame size, right? But you take the log of that, so that'd be log 2. What do I mean by the log of that? I just mean that it's going to be in this format here with a base of 2. So just take that exponent, and that'd be the answer. Okay. So number of bits in blank address is number of page or frames times page or frame size. And that's it. Okay. Right. Part C. This one says, if the OS requires all pages of a process to be in memory for it to run, how many processes can the OS load to memory at the same time? Well, this is basically just saying how many frames are there, right? Because let's say all frames are empty and the OS requires all pages of process to be in memory for it to run. How many processes can the OS load to memory at the same time? we have to say, okay, each process, wait, hold on, I think I'm going about this incorrectly. How many processes can that list? So we need to first know the number of frames. To get the number of frames, we have the frame size, which is 2 to the 10. And we have the physical memory. Oh, no, we have 32 frames. Wait, so then how do you do this? I think, is it just 32 divided by 8? Yeah, 32 divided by 8. Yeah. Processes at the same time is the number of frames divided by the number of pages. I wouldn't say frames per process, it'd be pages per process. Because it's saying consider a logical address space of 8 pages, meaning each process has 8 pages, and there's 32 frames, where each frame is the same size as the pages. Then you just do 32 divided by 8, and you get 4. So if the OS requires all pages of the process to be in memory for it to run, it can only have 4 processes running at the same time, or 4 processes in memory at the same time. Okay. All right. There are a few of these that are kind of weird. Let's try this one. I don't think I did this one, number A or part A, but let's try it together. I honestly, I think he'll probably just give like one of these types of questions and then just have multiple parts, and then the other ones will be like another stuff, hopefully. So like if you don't get this stuff, honestly, don't worry. Unless you need like 100, then you should probably get it. But if you don't, then I wouldn't concern yourself with this stuff too much. So consider a 32-bit computer. So that's a virtual address space of 32 bits. It has a 1 gigabyte physical memory. Can someone tell me how many bytes is 1 gigabyte? How many bytes is 1 gigabyte? 2 to the 30 bytes, correct. You need to know this for your exam tomorrow. 2 to 30 bytes is 1 gigabyte. This machine employs single level paging with 8,192 byte frames, meaning each frame is 8 kilobytes. Okay. Show the parts of virtual address, i.e., how many bits are used for offset, how many bits for indexing the page table. So basically, it's saying this is your virtual address, and this is your offset, and this is your page number. How many bits are used for the page number, and how many bits are used for the offset? Remember, in the normal one, it's like page number is 20 and offset is 12 for a 32-bit computer, in like that normal thing that we did. In this case, it's saying to find it, right? So we're in a 32-bit computer, so the entire address itself is 32 bits. And it's saying that each frame is 8 kilobytes, meaning each page, so page size, each page is 2 to the 13 bytes, or 2 to the 13 bits, 13 bits. Okay. And so since the page size is 13 bits, either the page number or the offset is going to be 13 bits. I'm trying to remember which one. Let me just double check.
I think it's the offset.
That should be the offset, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, because if you have a page size, yeah, I'm looking at it right here, 13 bits. Yeah. So the offset pertains to the page size, or how many bits the page size is. So since the page size is 2 to 13 bytes or 13 bits, the offset is going to be 13 bits. And so if the offset is 13 bits, can someone tell me how many bits the page number is in a 32-bit system? 19, correct. And so this would be your answer. Show the parts of virtual address, i.e. how many bits are used for offset, how many bits are used for indexing the table, i.e. page number. This is your answer. Okay. All right, next part. It says, how many physical frames does the machine have? How many virtual pages does the machine have? How many bytes does a process page table occupy in memory? So to get the number of physical frames, it's going to be the physical memory size divided by the frame size. So let's look at our original problem. It says we have 1 gigabyte of physical memory, which is 2 to the 30 bytes, and 8 kilobyte frames. How many bytes is 8 kilobytes? Can someone tell me? 2 to the 13. And so, what's 30 minus 13? 17. So the number of physical frames is 2 to the 17. Okay. Next part, how many virtual pages does the machine have? Well, we're in a 32-bit computer. Okay. So we have a 2 to 32 byte virtual address space with 8 kilobyte frames. And so, sorry, number of pages is virtual mem size divided by page size. So that's 2 to the 32 divided by page size. It's the same as the frame size, so 2 to the 13. What's 2 to the 32 divided by 2 to the 13? 2 to the 19. So the number of pages is 2 to the 19. Finally, how many bytes does a process's page table occupy in memory? Now, this one I actually do not remember. How many bytes does a process's page table occupy in memory? Oh, wait. I think, oh no, because not all page tables, or not all pages need to be. I think it would just be the number of pages times its size. Wait, no, then that'd be 2 to 32. Let me just see what I put. And I didn't put anything. Okay, let me just double check.
Actually, wait, I asked him a question about this. So,
Oh, what do you say?
okay, this was an example with a 16-bit architecture, but it could be for 32 as well for this. We know that the frame size for this is 2 to the 13. So we know the last 13 bits are for the offset, and the first 19 are for the page number. So each page table entry must be the 32 bits, because that's the entire entry. And this is because it's going to store not just the 8-bit page number, but also all the other bits that we talked about. Thus, the total size
So
of
you're saying the page table entry is 13 bits?
32 bits. It's the full 32 bits.
32 bits. Okay, sorry.
Thus, the total size of the PT for each process is the number of entries times... Wait, that doesn't make sense. Oh, wait, okay, the frame size times the number of bytes per PTE. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, so the frame size times the number of bytes per PT, because it makes sense. If there's...
You mean the number of... By frame size, you mean the number of frames or like the actual frame size?
So the number of entries times the frame size, which is... Wait. No, the PTE size. I'm so sorry. It would be 2 to the 13 times 32, which would be 2 to the 5, right? So 2 to the 13 times 2 to the 5, right? I just converted 32 into a binary.
Sorry, where'd you get 2 to the 5?
It's from 32.
Sorry?
So 32, sorry about this, I was just trying to figure it out myself too. So the way the formula works is it's going to be the frame size times the number of bytes per PTE. So PTE size. We know the PTE is 32. You could just say PTE size, make it easy.
You said frame size divided by what?
Times by the PTE size.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry about the confusion. It's confusing for me too. Okay.
There we go.
So frame size, we also know is gonna be 2 to the 13.
2 to the 13.
Yeah, so it's gonna be 2 to the 13 times 2 to the 5th, because we convert the 32 bits, which is the size of the entire PTA, right? PTE is literally that page number and offset combined, so the 19 and 13 combined. Because we can now multiply these because they have the same base. When it's same base, add the powers, so you get 13 plus 5. That becomes 2 to the 18.
Oh, it's 2 to the 5th because that's 32. That's 32 bits.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you multiplied them, and that gave you how many bytes
2 to the 18
occupies?
Yeah.
That's 2 to the 18 bytes?
Yeah. Or would it be just 18 bytes? Yeah, it would just be,
I can also cross-check it here.
Yeah, if you can.
Got 2 to the 18. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Wait, what? 2 to 21.
Whoa. Why are they getting 2 megabytes per process
That's
page
2
table?
to the 19 times 4. Assume each PTE is 4 bytes. You can't just assume. Oh, I remember this question because it was assuming and that was pissing me off. That's why I didn't do it.
Yeah, he got the frame size based on, yeah, he got it based on the frame size.
So I guess we should just use the frame size.
I guess, yeah.
So it's the frame size
Times the PTE size.
Doing 2 to the 19, but we did 2 to the 13. Oh, no, sorry. We did 2 to the 5th. He did, or GPT did 2 to 19.
That's the page number itself. Actually, well, I don't know because, like, okay, the page number itself is gonna have, like, well, wait, is the PTE talking about the page number itself or that and the offset?
That's what I'm confused by. It says there's 2 to 19 virtual pages. Oh, wait. Yeah. It's because it's a single level page table. So all pages are going to be in the page table. So it's just 2 to 19. There's 2 to 19 virtual pages times the size of each page table entry. That gets us the amount of bytes. But with the number or the size of the page table entry isn't given. That's why it's assuming the page table entry size is 4 bytes. But that's not given to us. So I guess you're saying that he said the page table entry size is the same size as the frame size, which is the
He
same
said,
size as the page size.
in this case, it was 16-bit architecture. This means that each PTE must be 16 bits, 2 bytes.
So then
So
each in a 32-bit architecture, the PTE must be 4 bytes, you said? Or sorry, wait. Can you repeat what you just said?
yeah, so this was 16-bit architecture. And this means that each PTE must be 16 bits, aka 2 bytes.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So
I could send the picture as well.
then it wouldn't be, since 2 to the 19. Oh, wait. Yeah, it would be the number of pages, so 2 to the 19, times its byte size, that's 5. So it'd be 2 to the 19 times 5, but 5 doesn't exactly translate well to the 2, whatever. Oh, wait.
32.
Hold on. Oh, wait, sorry, that's 2 to the 5 bytes. Sorry. So it'd be 2 to the 13 times, sorry, it would be 2 to the 19 times 2 to the 5. That'd be 19 plus 5. That'd be 2 to the 24 in our case. And then that means that how many bytes does a process page table occupy? It'd be 2 to the 24 bytes, I guess. Here, I can bring up this, what he said, right?
Yeah.
Question says that it's a 16-bit architecture. This means that the total virtual address space of a process is 2 to the 16 bytes. The frame size is 256 bytes, so 2 to the 8. Therefore, the PT of a process has 2 to the 16 divided by 2 to the 8, so 256 entries. Frame size. Okay. And then the last 8 bits of a virtual address space is the offsets. And the first 8 bits is the page number. Remember that this is a note that he said that offset is the last 8 bits because the frame size is 2 to the 8, and that's 8 bits. So just note that. The last bits of a virtual address space is the offset, and the first 8 bits is the page number. Remember that this is a 16-bit architecture. This means that each PTE must be 16 bits, which is 2 bytes. This is because the PTE, so we could be like, how many bytes is 32 bits? And it's 4. So I guess we just need to know that. And that's why it does 2 to the 9. 19 times 4. That's where it gets 2 to 21.
So convert it to bytes.
Yep. 1, 2, 4. I mean, how does... I guess we just have to remember that 16 bits is 2 bytes.
Well, it's you divide it by 8.
Is 4 bytes.
You just divide by 8.
Oh yeah, so 32 divided by 8. That's okay. That's 4. Yeah. So If you want to find the how many bytes a process's page table occupies, all you have to do is you take the number of page tables, or the number of page table entries. In our case, that's 2 to the 19. And then you take the number of bytes each page table entry is. How do you get that? You take the bit architecture of the computer, so that's 32-bit. You take 32, divide it by 8 to convert it to bytes, because it's asking for bytes, and then you do 2 to the 19 times 4, because 32 divided by 8 is 4, and that'll give you 2 to the 21. So the answer for how many bytes does a process's page table occupy in memory as 2 to the 21 bytes. Yep, this is, yeah, I hate this question, but so
So wait, can you just repeat that formula?
Yeah, so to figure out how many to figure out how many bytes a process's page table occupies, you find, or I'll write it out, page table size, I guess you can call it. I'll put it occupy size. That is the number of page tables, the number of pages times the number, times the size of PTE, which is the page table entries. So number of pages, again, that's 2 to 19. And the size of the PTE is 32 bits, but we want it in bytes. So 32 divided by 8, that's 4. So that's 2 to 19 times 4, and that's 2 to 21. 4 parts, 2 points each? No, I think it's 4 parts, 4 points each. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, these questions are just kind of annoying. But yeah, okay. This gets back into what we were talking about before. You can notice a problem where I just did the thing that my answer here is wrong. Can anyone tell me why my answer here is wrong besides Lauren? Because I explained why this is wrong before to her, like a person. Anyone tell me why this answer is wrong, given this information up here? Why is C wrong? And I'll also bring this up here too.
Isn't it like because it's not in a like specific format?
Yeah, because the page number is not 20 bits and the offset is not 12 bits. Instead, the page number is 19 and the offset is 13. This can only be done, like you just could concatenate and yada yada yada. If the page number is 20 bits and the offset is 19 bits. And so again, in this case, what you would do, here we have 19 bits and 13 bits. You would take a bit from the page number and give it to the offset, convert to binary the page number to get your new binary number, use that to get the frame number from the PTE. So assume it's OX12345 in this case, whatever. And then you would take OX12345, convert it back to binary, and concatenate it with the bits plus the offset. And then you would put that back in hexadecimal, and that would be the physical address. Okay? Quite a bit to remember. Right? And then part D of this question, he'll definitely give a question like this, I feel, where this is 19 and this is 4 parts. Like, you should be prepared to answer something like this. Now this one here, I'm pretty sure I did this one wrong too, because this is a single level page table. Right, so this formula here that I use is wrong. This should be, I think, 2. But I'll get into it in a bit.
Yeah, I also had checked with him on this, so pretty much what you said about it being n+1. So based on whatever level it is, if it's single level, that's what your n is going to be. Your n is going to be 1. You just add 1 extra reference. So whatever level the page table is, like double level, just means that you have 2 references in the page table itself. You have to go from the virtual memory to the first page table, and then the first page table to the second. So it's like 2 jumps you have to do. And then you always add 1 extra because now that you have the physical memory address, you have to actually go into physical memory. That's what we're referring to when we say that n+1, and that goes before that beta, which, yeah, that's the memory access time, right? Because that's what we're saying, how many times you have to go into memory for that.
Sorry, were you asking a question? I was looking at something.
Oh, no, I was just kind of explaining the n+1 thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're good.
Okay. So with this question here, we have the question states assume that memory access takes 100 microseconds. This machine uses TLB, and TLB access takes 100 nanoseconds. Assume a 90% TLB hit ratio or whatever. Compute the effective memory access time. So, you can see that we have a mismatch in types where this is microseconds and this is nanoseconds. And so a good thing to know is that 1 microsecond is 1,000 nanoseconds. Okay. And so first thing we do is we convert, so 100 microseconds is 100,000 nanoseconds. And now we have to identify our stuff. So we have this formula here. We have beta plus epsilon of alpha plus n+1 beta plus epsilon 1 minus alpha, where beta is the memory access time, epsilon is the TLB access time, and then alpha is the hit ratio. So we know that the memory access time takes 100,000 nanoseconds. We put that here. The memory access time takes 100 nanoseconds. Right? Oh wait, sorry. Did I do this wrong? Memory access time takes 100. Sorry, I did this wrong. This should be 100,000 nanoseconds here, and this should be 100 nanoseconds here. Okay, because TLB access takes 100 nanoseconds, TLB access 100 nanoseconds. And then assume a 90% TLB hit ratio. So the hit ratio is 0.90. Compute the effective memory access time. So we're going to input our values. Let me just swap this around. So beta is 100 and epsilon is 100,000. Okay. And we're multiplying it by 0.90, right? Because that's the A. And then we're saying n+1. What is n? N is the number of levels. So we're in a single level page table, so n is 1. So that's going to be n+1, that's 2. And then 2 beta, where beta is 100. Oh, wait, sorry. Yeah, beta is 100,000, sorry. Right? So we're going to get 200,000 plus 100, right? Using this formula. And then times 1 minus alpha, where alpha is 0.90, so that's 0.10. And this would be your answer. And this would be in nanoseconds. so I definitely expect him to ask an entire question like this. Where'd you get 200K from? Again, it's n plus 1 times beta, and beta is 100,000. N is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, so that's 200,000. Is the order mismatched? Yeah, sorry, it should be like this. There you go. And if you want, you can go ahead and also just write it out to 100,000, 100,100 times 0.90 plus 200,100 times 0.10. If you want, you could do that too. And that would look like this. I don't know if he was joking when I asked him that in office hours, but he was like, yeah, of course. Like, what do you mean? He was like, what do you mean? Why you can't do that? So I don't know if he was trolling, but I'm putting it like this. I don't care. Okay. All right, let's do a little bit more. Also want to go through this diagram right here. Some of these other ones are just kind of, I haven't even been able to go through all of them. These you guys should be able to do on your own. Hopefully, this shouldn't be hard. I don't want to waste time on that. 46 to 48, that won't be on it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I haven't done all of them. I'm honestly just trying to get like a 60. Because this is too much. But good luck to everyone else. Okay, where was I? Here it was, okay. Alright, let's try this one now. Okay. So this one says, consider a 16-bit architecture that uses single-level paging. Right? And note.
Oh, this was, I think,
Single-level
the
paging.
question that was from the email.
Okay. Single-level paging. Assume the frame size is 256, and the total physical memory size is 16 kilobytes. What's the total virtual memory size, and how many frames does the physical memory have? Okay. So the easiest one to do here would be this one. How many frames does the physical memory have? Because we're given the frame size and we're given the total physical memory size. And so number of frames, again, is the physical memory size divided by frame size. So the physical size is 16 kilobytes, and the frame size is 256 bytes. And so this here is going to be 2 to the 14, because 1 kilobyte is 2 to the 10, And then 16 is 2 to the 4. So 2 to the 4 times 2 to the 10 is 2 to the 14. And then 256, I believe, is 5 or 6. Wait, hold on. I'm getting that wrong. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256 with 9, right? No, it's not 7. I think it's 9. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256. Yeah, so 9. So that's 2 to the 9. Right? And then you're going to do 14 minus 9. Right? Right, so 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. That's going to get 2 to the 5. Right? So the number of frames is 2 to the 5. Okay. And now how do we get the virtual memory size? It is a 16-bit architecture, and each page is 2 to the 56 bytes. Right? So the virtual mem size.
Wait, it's 2 to the 8, not 2 to the 9.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's going to be 2 to 6. Wait. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256. Am I getting something wrong here? How is it not 9? 1? Wait. Oh, bro, I'm stupid. I was saying 1 as my thumb, but that's 2 to the 0. Right, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256. There you go. Okay, sorry. Okay. So the virtual memory size is going to be the 16-bit architecture, right? That's 2 to the 16 divided by the page size, which is 2 to the 8. So that's 16 minus 8. That's 2 to the 8 bytes. Okay. Because it's a 16-bit architecture, which is 2 to the 16 bytes, and the page size is 2 to the 8, so that's 2 to the 8 bytes. That should be correct. Let me just double check. Yep, 2 to the 8, 2 to the 14. Oh, sorry, 2 to 6, I mean. Okay. Oh, wait, no. Hold on, I did something wrong. Virtual memory size, 2, 6, 16. What did I do wrong? Oh, wait, hold on. I forgot. Virtual memory size is just the 16-bit architecture itself, I think. Let me just double check, though. I think that should just be 2 to 16. Wait, what am I looking at? Yeah, 2 to 16. Okay, yeah. So when you're trying to find the virtual memory size, you just take the bit architecture and you put in an exponent. So that'd just be 2 to the 16. Sorry. I was thinking about the page, the number of pages. So that's the size divided by the page size. That's the page number. Yeah, 2 to 16 bytes. Okay, sorry about that. All right, B. This says draw the virtual. Sorry. Draw the virtual address and show how many bits are used for offset and how many bits are used for page number. So that's going to look something like this. Where we have the page number and we have the offset. So this entire thing is supposed to be 16 bits, right? And the offset, remember we said that's the same size or the same amount of bits as the page itself. So the page itself, same size, the page is the same size as the frame, and the frame is 2 to the 56 bytes, which is 2 to the 8 bytes. And 2 to the 8 bytes is 8 bits. So the offset is 8 bits. And since the offset is 8 bits, that means the page number is 8 as well. Okay. This one says how many entries does a process's page table have? What's the size of a process's page table? So to find the entries, this one actually, let me see. Okay. So I'd assume that you would need to find the number of pages first. It's a 16-bit virtual memory size, so 2 to 16 bytes, and the frame size is 2 to the 8. So you're going to have 2 to the 8 pages. So number of pages, it should be 2 to the 8 pages. So 256 pages. And that should be how many entries a process's page table has. And for the size, again, it's for the size of the, size of the process page table. It's going to be the number of pages times the, how do I say it? The bit architecture divided by 8. Is that the right way to say it? I don't know. Or I guess the size
Yeah, number
of the
of
page
bytes.
itself. Sorry?
Number of bytes, yeah.
Yeah, the number of bytes of that architecture. So it's 16-bit architecture. You convert it to byte, so that's 16 divided by 8, that's 2. So that's 2 to the 8 times 2. And that gives us 2 to the 9, is that correct?
I'm not sure.
Wasn't this the same question you did?
Yeah, but I think it was something else that he had as the answer.
Process page
Or
tables,
actually,
2 to 16 bytes.
wait, no, it would be 512 bytes. And that's, I think, 2 to the 9. Yeah, you're right. You
This
got
is
it.
correct?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so then what did I do here? I think it was probably, oh, I put yellow because I didn't know how to do this. But yeah, the 2 to 56 pages, that's 2 to the 8. So there's number of pages, 2 to the 8. And then to get the size of the process's page table, you do the number of pages times the amount of bytes for the architecture. Since we know it's 16-bit, to convert it to bytes, we take the amount of bits divided by 8, and that gives us the number of bytes. Okay. And then for the final 2 parts of this, part D says show a diagram. Here, I'll go up here. Show a diagram that shows how address translation occurs. Draw a TLB, page table, and physical memory. Assume all pages of a process are in the memory for the process to run. Byte is the bit divided by 8. Yeah, that's how you convert from bit to bytes, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. Because there's 8 bits in a byte.
Yeah. All right, so our CPU, for each process, when it tries to access memory, it's going to generate a virtual address. And the virtual address is going to look like this. It's going to have the page number, I'll put P, and the offset, I'll call it D. All right, so this is the virtual or logical address. And we're gonna turn this into a physical address. So that's gonna look like this. It's gonna have the frame number, and it's going to have the offset, okay? And so this virtual address is going to be fed into the TLB, and the TLB consists of two things. It consists of the page number, and it consists of just the frame number. Right, so if there's a hit, it's going to, actually I'll draw like this. If there's a hit, it's just gonna go straight to the frame number, and this will be the physical address. But if there's a miss, right, so this is a miss, then, actually, sorry, this should be coming out from the page number. If there is a miss, then we're gonna go to the page table, which is filled with page table entries. Similar, they have the page table entries, how they're structured. Again, they have the page information, such as the modified bit, reference bit, valid bit, and prop bits. And they also have the frame number, right? So this would give you your frame number, and it would go up like that. And then this physical address will be fed into the physical main, the main memory. So main memory to a specific frame. So we call this like, this is the frame, and then this is offset D. Okay. And that would be your answer for this. Any questions? All good? All right. And then the final part of this question. Sorry, I see people typing. Okay. The final part of this question is similar to the previous one. All right. It's assume TLB search takes 1 nanosecond and memory access takes 100 nanoseconds. For a TLB hit rate of 90%, compute effective memory access. Sorry, effective memory access time. So remember, effective memory access time is equal to beta plus epsilon alpha plus n plus 1 beta plus epsilon 1 minus alpha, where beta is the mem access time, epsilon is the TLB access time, the alpha is the hit ration, and n is the number of levels or layers, whatever you want to call it. So we know this is a single level page table, so n is 1. The hit ration is 90%, right? So that's 0.90. The TLB access time is the TLB search takes 1 nanosecond, so 1 nanosecond. And the memory access time takes 100 nanoseconds, so 100 nanoseconds. So your answer is going to be 100 plus 1 plus n plus 1 is 1 plus 1, so that's 2. And 2 times beta is 100. Or sorry, 2 times 100 is 200, so 200 plus 1 times 1 minus 0.90, so that's just 0.10. 0.10, which I realized I forgot to, let me just do it this way. It should be 0.90 plus, and there we go. Okay. And this is the answer. Right. Then you got 200, so remember it's n plus 1 times beta. Beta in this case is 100, and n is 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 times 100 is 200.
If you want to think of it this way, right, what exactly is it saying? It's saying that's the miss side of it. So remember the diagram that we just created? We'd have to kind of go the long way. We can't take the TLB, which is just the one access time. This would require us to go through to the memory to kind of figure it out that way. I mean, go through the page table and then into memory. So that's going to be for a single level page table, n will be 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So there's going to be 2 references, 1 to the page table itself and then 1 to the memory itself. If it was a double level, then n would be 2, and that would be 2 plus 1 is 3, because there'd be 3 accesses, right? 1 to go to the first page table, 1 to go to the second page table, 1 to go to the actual memory itself. Hope that kind of clears it up. Cool.
Okay. All right, and that wraps it up for this question here. So again, I definitely think you'll give something like this, where each portion of the question kind of leads into the next one. So we'll definitely get something like this. Except for this diagram doesn't really relate to any of them. Same with this one. The only thing this really relates to is the levels, so the value of n. That's about it. Which you'll see that the answer here is wrong, because I thought that this was just the base formula. It's always times 3. It's not always times 3. It's n plus 1. So that would change the answer to this. Okay. Okay, I don't really know what else to go over.
Low-key, I feel like we
honestly,
kind
I
of did
feel like this
everything.
bit stuff, yeah, I feel like this bit stuff is mainly like RNG. If he's nice about it, he is, but I don't know. We'll just have to see. Some good stuff to remember.
Low-key, you could probably like still do well and avoid the bit stuff, because that seems to be like the really challenging part. And even like the hexadecimal stuff, like if that's gonna like mess you guys up too, I think you'd still kind of be okay.
Yeah. But there's some good stuff to remember here. If you're gonna do the bit stuff, 1 kilobyte, remember, is 2 to the 10. 1 gigabyte is 2 to the 30 bytes. 1 bit is 8 bytes, right? To find the size of the page table itself, that is the page number, or sorry, the number of pages times the bit architecture in bytes. So, for example, where was it? Here. How many bytes does a process's page table occupy in memory? That was, where's my answer? Oh, wait. over here, sorry. Again, it's 2 to the 8 times, this was a 16-bit architecture, so 16 in bytes is 2. And we got that. That's the size of the processes page table. How many entries does a processes page table have? Again, that's just the number of pages in a single level page table. How many bytes does a processes page table occupy in memory? Again, for this question, it's just the number of pages times the bit architecture in bytes. So 32 divided by 8 times the number of pages. That would be how many bytes the process page table occupies. I'd assume he would give a lot of partial. Or at least hopefully.
I'm gonna be honest, given how his past exams were, I think, like, well, the final definitely will be harder. I don't think it's gonna be, like, completely insane, you know? So, if that's any reassurance. And also, like, he'll give partial credit and, like, if there's a part that you can't answer, like, just skip it and come back to it at the end. Like, just try to get through as many questions as you can. You know what? Maybe he was being extra cryptid and then he's gonna end up not even having that. And we all learned hexadecimal and bit patterns and whatnot for nothing. So, you know what? Let's hope that's the case.
What was I gonna say? Damn, I forgot. Fuck, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I forgot. I forgot about Edo. Oh yeah. I feel like your main focus again should be process synchronization and
Mem management.
mem management stuff. There's only gonna be like 4 questions, each worth like 4 points on the IO subsystem stuff. It could be easy points if you like know that stuff. It's gonna be 1 question on IO, but it's gonna be like that multiple part thing. Yeah. So honestly, if you just like do like a quick skim of IO, you'd probably be able to answer that stuff. And then just do the first 7 questions. I still haven't looked at those questions myself. So after we hop off this call, I'm gonna do that and then head to bed.
Yeah, I have
I think those should probably be your main focus.
Yeah, I have the answers for those. So honestly, like, take a look at the Google Doc I sent and mostly try to go over that diagram, like like, you know, the one that's kind of linking the user process with the independent software and the driver and the hardware. And if you know that, then like that's pretty much the gist of the whole thing. So
Yeah.
okay, you want to call it, Justin?
Yeah, I think that should be pretty much it. How do you guys feel for the exam? What are you guys thinking? Cooked? Damn.
My brain is too fried to think.
One second. Okay.
Yep, just think this time tomorrow you're gonna be done. No more operating systems.
Unless you fail, so don't fail.
Low key, everyone's scores seem to be pretty good though. So I think that even if the final ends up being a little worse, y'all should still do pretty good. Yeah, Akinlar doesn't like to fail a lot of people, so, you know, just do your best. That's all you can do.
Yes, Shamir, I'm gonna come to campus early. Around 10 or so. We'll see. Shane, do you want to go to campus early? I could drive us. All right. I'll pick you up like at 9:30 or some shit.